Hi everyone. Sorry, I'm just gonna give the rest of the people who registered for this session just a few more minutes. So maybe 3 minutes past this initial time, I'll start the session. But for now, maybe you could just start by introducing yourselves in the chat as I admit more people into the session. Okay. So I'm just gonna be respectful of everyone's time and I'll start. If anyone joins after, I'll just add them as we go along. Sorry, just a few more people. Okay. Yeah, so like I said, I'll just add people as we go along so that I'm respectful to everyone's time. We're doing introductions in the chat for anyone who's just joining us. So if you don't mind, just introduce yourself and where you're joining us from. I'm going to ask that as I present that you just ensure that you're on mute so that everyone can hear what I'm saying. Yeah, so as we start the session, this is going to be an information session that we're running about what Limitless is, and more specifically, the phase 2 of the Limitless Academy, and a bit on how to go about applying and going through the whole registration process. So my presentation won't be too long, so I think we should have enough space. If anyone has any questions at the end, feel free to raise them. But if you have questions along as I'm doing the presentation, please just put them in the chat and then I will answer them at the end of the presentation. So I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, I hope that it is visible for everyone. I don't know if anyone could just unmute and let me know if you can actually see my screen.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, like I said, today's session is just going to be an info session on what Limitless is and what we are. Apologies, sorry. I'm just gonna, because I feel like it's gonna keep distracting me when I try and add people. Gonna... Okay, yeah, 1 second. I'll just keep mass admitting everyone. Okay, back to my slides. So like I said, today's session will be on what you should be expecting out of phase 2 of the Limitless program and how you can go about applying for the actual program. For those of you that are joining that may not be as fluent in English, what I could suggest for you is we have subtitle translations. So just a quick directions on how to do that. If you look at your screen at the top, you'll see there's 3 dots that say more. If you click on that, you can then see the option of language and speech. If you click on language and speech, it will then give you a few options to like show live captions or turn on RTT, but you should click on show live captions. And then as the captions now show at the bottom of your screen, there's going to be a settings that you could click on, an icon for settings, and then translate to, and you can pick whatever language best suits you. It might not work for everyone. We've tested it. It should work, but in some cases, there are some people that have had issues with it. So if that's the case, I do apologize. But the session will be recorded and shared. So if you want to go back to it at any point, you can. So just a quick introduction into what the Limitless Academy actually is. So the IFRC Limitless Youth Innovation Leadership Academy is a global ecosystem that seeks to unlock the power and impact of youth and volunteer-driven innovation at a local level. So to date, we've already done 2 previous editions of Limitless. This is our 3rd one. And as it's our 3rd Limitless, we're actually going to be focusing on the topic of peace this year. So we are encouraging individuals who are interested in submitting projects around the topic of peace to take this opportunity actually to submit your ideas. So, like I said, we've already gone through phase 1 of Limitless. We're now currently moving into phase 2. Phase 1 was more of just a masterclass where we introduced innovation concepts, a bit about peace and leadership. We do understand that there are possibly some people that may not have been able to attend phase 1, but that's completely fine. You could still apply for phase 2, whether or not you were able to join phase 1. So phase 2 of Limitless is more focused on capacity building. So there will be a bit more space to actually really develop your ideas. So we're moving a bit more from the concepts to now practicing how to put these things into action. So we will be teaching you a bit more on how to prototype, how to test your ideas, and then get feedback from your community members, see what's working, what's not working, and a bit more on leadership and peace as a topic in general. In phase 2, we're actually going to be hosting most of the trainings on instant messaging apps. So either WhatsApp or in the case of some countries, mainly China, we'll also do it on WeChat. However, we're also introducing a new concept where we'll be doing, I think, about 2 sessions, 2 live sessions. So like on either Zoom or Teams. The platform will be confirmed, but that's a new thing we'll be adding. Phase 2, like I said, is all about implementing your prototypes and your pilots. So a few things that you should be taking note of is that In terms of applications at this stage, you could choose to apply either as an individual or as a team, and then we are accepting up to 1,000 applications by either teams or individuals. So in total, whether you applied as an individual or a team, we're going to be accepting 1,000 submissions. And then at this point, you now have access to seed funding. So it's about between 150 to 200 Swiss francs in terms of seed funding. I'm not sure on the conversion rate for each country, to be fair, but you could always just check and see. So what type of support we'll be able to give you guys through phase 2 of the program is there's obviously going to be space for peer mentoring, as well as seed funding. And then the seed funding I just mentioned. And then, like I said, training will be done on WeChat and WhatsApp, as well as Zoom or Teams this time around. And two new concepts that we're introducing are that you'll have access to global expert advisors. So you'll be able to reach out to an advisor in a specific field if you have questions in relation to your project that you think they could help you with. And then we also have a AI tool called Lucy AI, which you'll be able to access on the platform. And Lucy basically has all the knowledge on previous training materials, as well as current training materials, as well as submissions from previous editions. And what you can do with Lucy is that you can use it to ask questions on how you could apply some of these concepts into your project or just get a bit of inspiration. So who can apply for phase 2 of the Limitless program? So phase 2 is open for volunteers of the Red Cross Red Crescent Network. It's open to staff members of national societies, any national society that's seeking to develop their local innovation support system a bit more, as well as any hubs or communities that work and partner with national societies. We do require that participants be between the age of 18 to 30 years old. However, we do know that, just on that same point, is that there are some people who apply for the program and they are interested and they're sometimes under the age of 18 or over the age of 30. We have taken that into consideration in our thinking, and we have suggested that if any one of those individuals would like to apply, we ask that they apply as a team member, and then ensure that they're not the team leader of that project. So if you're in a team of 5 people and 4 of you are under the age of 18, the 5th person should be between 18 to 30, and they'll be the leader of the team leader of that group. Like I said earlier, anyone can apply for phase 2, even if you didn't participate in phase 1. But in terms of video applications as a team, we require that only one individual member applies for the whole team. It's best maybe sometimes if you just have the team leader do it, but we leave it up to you guys to decide whether you would like all your team members to be in the video applications or if you'd prefer one person be the one to do all the talking. Now, how to apply for the program itself. Sorry, just 1 second. I think there are a few people trying to join. Okay. Sorry, I hope you can see my screen again. So, how to apply. So we do it a bit unconventionally. We don't require you to write a long proposal or a document submission as to why you should apply for, why you should get the position of in the program. So what we encourage you actually to do is to do video applications, and we break them down into 3 main questions. So the first question, which should be about a minute long, is just asking you, what inspires you to motivate and it motivates you to apply for this program, And then the second question, which should be around 2 minutes long, asks you, what is the peace-related challenge you want to focus on? And then the third question is, what's your initial idea to tackle the challenge? And what is the impact you expect to see in the community? So for each of these questions, we do have a guideline, and I'll share it in the chat once I'm done with my presentation, that just gives you a bit more explanation on what each of these questions is really asking you. So like, for example, with what is the peace-related challenge you want to focus on, I know that there's some aspects that ask you to explain a bit more on why it's important for you, why it's important for your community. So we just need you to look at the questions a bit more in focus, and then also look at the guidelines and see what that extra bit of explanation is asking you, because I think that will help you a lot with your submission. But at the end of it, to apply for phase two, sorry, you actually just need to submit 3 separate videos answering the 3 different questions. And then if you try and keep to the time limit of each question, I think that would be great for your application purposes. And then the whole registration process will happen on the Limitless Solferino Academy website. Again, I'll put the link to the website in the chat at the end, just so that you have direct access to it. So because Limitless is a global program, we do offer the whole program in 18 different languages. So just in case English is not your first language and you don't feel comfortable with doing an entire training in English, we do offer these various other languages just as an alternative. So as you're applying, please do ensure that you specify which language you're more comfortable learning in. Sometimes for me, like for example, I am fluent in Swahili. That's my native language, but at the same time, I do feel comfortable in learning in English. So if I was to pick, I might pick English. So just see what works best for you and then go with that specific language. And that's mainly just because we group people based off of languages and regions, so it just might be easier for you that way. And then the projects that we're interested in. So the main topic is peace, obviously, but we are looking for topics within this range. So if you have any interest in these topics on like mental health dialogues, storytelling, social cohesion, water and climate change, protection, and you can link it to peace in any way, then we do encourage you to try and to apply with that in mind. I know for a lot of applications, possibly you could link poverty and livelihood matters as a cause for your interest in that topic. And then potentially your solution could be more something leaning towards, how to develop nonviolent communication, how to create, a sports program that could help in some way. So basically, there's a lot of space and range for you to play with with these topics. You don't necessarily have to just stick to one channel. You could just see what works for you and then align with that. And then lastly, the most important thing of all of this is that registration for phase 2 is going to be closing on August 2nd. There is potential if we see the need to extend the deadline. However, it's always safe to apply before the actual date that we have, because we'll probably stick to the 2nd of August. So after this session, if you have time to start thinking through your idea, if you haven't already, you could start to think through it a bit, but just make sure that you submit your submission before the 2nd of August. I know sometimes people like to wait till the very end, but with platform delays and stuff, it's always safer to try and apply earlier than to wait for the last possible moment. So just keep in mind that registration closes on August 2nd. So if you can get your application submitted before that, that would be great. And then, yeah, that is the end of my presentation. Like I said, it was going to be short, just so that there's space for anyone to ask any questions, get any clarification on something that you would want to understand a bit better. But yeah, so I'll leave it open to anyone who has questions. If you don't feel comfortable unmuting yourself, you can always just put it in the chat, but it would be nice to hear your questions. No question is a wrong question, by the way. You can just ask. Okay. Yeah, Taifa, you can ask as I read. I can see that you've unmuted yourself, but I can't hear you. I don't know if it's just a me thing, but I can't hear your question. So I'm not sure. Maybe you could put your question in the chat, like Peter, and then I'll start with Peter's question. So Peter's saying just a concern with the groups assigned since the. Oh yeah, now I can hear you.
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible now?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
I think there is an issue with the microphone. I hope so. Ma'am, am I audible now?
Yeah, you are.
Okay, so this is me, Taifa, from Gilgit-Baltistan, the northern areas of Pakistan. So I was like working on my idea that is more related to, the theme climate change. But when I saw the word adaptation, then I researched and saw that my idea was, under the category of mitigation, climate mitigation, instead of climate adaptation. So I need guidance on that.
Okay, so just to clarify, is your project entirely based on climate, or is there aspect of peace to it? Because I do know this last year's program was more climate focused. This year, like I said, we are trying to focus more on peace related topics, but there are ways that you can always link a climate issue to a peace related matter. So I don't know if you've already sort of built that connection in your idea. I don't know if I lost you again because I can't hear you. Um, Alternatively, what we can do is if you can't hear me, and I mean if I can't hear you, you can always I'll put my email as well. I guess we've lost her, but yeah, if I could have done that for her. But okay, so Peter's question was just a concern with the groups assigned since they're suspended. Sorry, Peter, what do you mean by since they're suspended? Maybe you could just put it in the chat as well, just for if you feel comfortable, just unmute and then ask me. but I don't know if everyone else feels comfortable with the session, if there's a specific question that you have on top end, they say they are. Oh, so I don't so when I talk about the groups, I'm talking about the one for applying. So you could apply as a group. I'm not sure why the WhatsApp groups are suspended. Is this because this might be for phase one? I think in when we move into phase two, we're going to create entirely new groups. So we won't be using the same WhatsApp communities that you might have been in previously. Um, that that will be changed. So you'll be assigned to different groups, but what I was referring to more so was that if you were interested in applying as a group, you could apply as a group this time around. If you find like this, yeah. Okay. But yeah, just for anyone else, if you find like you have a similar topic to someone in the same area as you and they're from the same national society, you could choose to work together and apply as a group if that interested you. Yes, Taifa.
Hello, ma'am. Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is me, Taifa Hamid, and I am from Pakistan Red Crescent Society. The idea that I was working on is much more relevant to climate change. Um, Under the category of climate mitigation. But when I heard the question on the website, that was, they will mention like climate adaptation projects. So
Mm.
I was much more worried because, I just tailored my whole idea under the climate mitigation theme. But now I am researching on much more ideas that how I can transform my idea back to the, climate adaptation category.
Mm.
So,
Okay.
what do you think?
Yeah, so I was just saying earlier, I don't know if you heard me. So I understand the difference between climate mitigation and climate adaptation, but I was just asking you if this time round, whether you had aligned your project to a bit more like, does it have a bit that aligns with peace? Because like I said, in the previous year, yes, the topic was completely on climate related issues, but this year around, it's more focused on peace. And so there are ways that you could link your climate related issue to a peace related challenge that's going on in your country. But I just wanted to understand if you've already also been considering that, because that's going to be one of the factors that they'll look at when they're judging your application.
Yes, ma'am. I read out the second question. They focused on how our idea is mainly, related to peace. So I tried out that element, I tried to integrate that point in my own idea, but I was just confused in the medication or the adaptation one.
I think I would so interestingly, I think I would lean more personally, and I think you can also look into it a bit more yourself, but I would maybe look at it more from a point of climate adaptation as opposed to mitigation. Um, but that's just my opinion. I leave your expertise and your interest to be the one that guides you in your decision.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And then Peter, I'll answer your question on what's the minimum number to have in a group. So I personally feel like a minimum of a group should be about 4 people. Maximum, I think 6, just because I know how group dynamics can work sometimes. I think not to say that you should always have a smaller group, but when you have more people, it's just a bit, it can be a bit difficult. So I think also it just has to see who you're aligning with in terms of your group. But personally, for me, a minimum number would be 4 people, and then maximum I would go to about 6. But I know that there's some people that might try and go above that, but ideally I would just stick within that range. Does anyone have any other questions about the application process? So I'm just going to put in the links that I mentioned earlier. So that first link takes you to the Limitless website. And that is where you'll be able to do your application. And then this second link is to a Google Drive that has application guidelines in all the various languages I mentioned. So you can click on the guidelines, find the language that you are comfortable in, and then it will give you a bit more of that explanation on each question so that you understand what we're asking from you of each question. Yes, Haifa.
Ma'am, one more question. I'm sorry. I saw a lot of volunteers were, just recording videos in the Pakistan Religion jacket or IFRC jackets. Is it necessary to record the videos in that jacket, or we can do without that?
Yeah, it's not necessary. I think sometimes people do it just for representation to see where their idea is coming from. It's not a mandatory thing. You can choose to do it without.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions? I hope you can all access the guidelines that I've just shared. I think those are very important. I would say if there's anything you take away from today's session, it's make sure that you have access to these guidelines, because the explanations for what we're looking for in each question and each video submission, I think will help with your videos. Are there any more questions? Like I said, the session is recorded, so we're going to share the recording. So if you missed any point, you could always go back. But if you have any questions at the moment, I think it would be best to just ask them. Yeah, please ask your question. You can unmute if you want, by the way, or you can put it in the chat.
Ma'am, one more question. There was my fellow in the office, and he was just more curious that, without applying for the phase one, as you previously mentioned, he wasn't involved in phase one. So now he can, directly, whether he can submit or not.
Yeah. So if you missed being part of phase one, that's fine. You can still apply for phase two of the program.
Okay, that's great.
Wilson, did you want to ask your question? You could type it or unmute and ask. Okay, thank you. I'm gonna read through yours because it's a bit long. Okay, so the first question is, what are the main criteria used to evaluate phase two projects? Sorry, let me just admit people. Okay, so in terms of the criteria, we look to see what your project is, how it's related to peace in general, as well as the reasoning and the logic behind your idea. So at this point, I think because we've already done phase one, and like I said, phase two is more going into the actual project itself and how to develop your idea from a concept to an actual actionable thing. We just sort of look to see how the potential of your project, basically, as well as the potential for it to scale in your community. We look to see how much you've done in terms of the development of your idea. So like if you were to tell us about a peace project, but you gave us a very minimal explanation on why it's a challenge in your community or why it should be prioritized, I think that would reduce the chances of your application being approved, as opposed to if you gave us a bit more in-depth explanation, showing why this project is of value and interest in your community. How important is community engagement compared to the novelty of the idea? I think it's a mix of both. You always should have a balance, but I think at the end of the day, because this is innovation at a local level, I think community engagement is really important. We should see where the value comes in for your community with this idea. So the idea could be cool, but then have absolutely zero relevance to your community. And then, there's no balance there. So as much as we look for new and great ideas, we also encourage that there be some community involvement in the project, because also that's what always leads to the sustainability of a project, is the community's buy-in into your idea as well. Can projects that are already being piloted have an advantage over new ideas? I don't necessarily think so. But I think if you have a project that's already piloted, then you should be a bit further along in your development of the idea itself. But I don't think that it would give you an advantage, because there could be a new idea that has a better standing in terms of what could benefit the community. What level of evidence or impact do you expect applicants to provide? So like I said, in the guidelines, you'll see specific explanations of what exactly it is that we're looking for. I will say in phase 2, it's not as in-depth as you progress, because here we're still at that beginning stage of your idea, sort of. We're trying to move it a bit into an actual actionable item. So I wouldn't say that the level is as high as it is as you progress, but there are specific things that we're looking for, and that's going to be in the guidelines if you look at it. If selected, what support besides the seed funding will participants receive? So like I said in my presentation, and okay, I'll explain it and then I'll share the slides just again for anyone who wants to see. But in terms of what benefit or what support you get through this, other than the seed funding, is you'll get peer mentoring. So there are going to be facilitators on hand who can provide that support to you through peer mentoring. Obviously, we'll give you training on a bit more of these concepts to understand how you can apply them better into your project. And then the 2 new aspects that I mentioned that we are introducing is that you'll get access to global expert advisors. So we have a list of different advisors who you can look at their profile and sort of see, this person aligns more to my project. How can I then reach out to him or her and then ask them a specific question on how to better engage with your idea and develop it a bit more. And then lastly, we have a AI tool on our platform, and that AI tool basically gives you all the knowledge from previous applications as well as the training materials that we create. So then you can just use that AI tool to sort of bounce ideas off of, to be like, okay, I have this idea. This is where I'm at. I'd like to see how I could apply this specific concept to better this part of the idea. And then it will sort of like give you some assistance. So those are a few of the things that we can give you in terms of support other than the seed funding. What are the most common reasons projects are not selected? So sometimes commonly it's that the project has not been developed properly. It could be just in the submission. Also, we do encourage people to just be cautious of the things that they say and they talk about in applications. Sometimes when people are talking about projects related to community members, you also have to just be conscious that you cannot share um, information about individuals or just like context that looks disturbing in any way. So just make sure that you're also protecting the community as much as you're trying to engage with them and have them be part of the project. Just make sure that there's also some form of safeguarding and protection towards the community. But a lot of the time, if a project isn't selected, it's mainly just because of the how they've packaged their sorry, someone was unmuted, but how they've packaged their idea. So you could potentially have a really good idea, but how you present it doesn't give it that same effect. So just make sure that as you're presenting your project to us, that you do your best to explain everything in terms of what it could potentially lead to. How should applicants measure and report the success of their pilot projects? So I think this will be more as you're going along, you'll actually learn a bit more about this in this phase 2, because then I think as you move into phase 3, as that's where you'll need to now show that to us. But in terms of learning how to measure and report it a bit more, you'll get that opportunity when you join this phase. If a project combines peace building with climate action or livelihoods, how should that be presented in the application? Let me just look at the guidelines specifically. I feel like that presentation of that response would be that you put it in question 2. So, because I feel like question 2 sort of asks you a bit more in depth about the problem itself, and why you're specifically engaging in that area or why you're prioritizing that issue. So if your project is combining all of those things, so peace building, climate action, and livelihoods, I would just put it all into your explanation in question 2. But then also, I think a bit of it could lean into question 3, because that asks you a bit more on the idea that you're trying to address and the potential of the impact on the community. So if it's a peace building activity rooted in climate action, you could just explain it there. But basically, all I'm saying is that in question 1 and 2, you should find a way to balance your response that highlights all of those things. And then I think I'm done with the majority of your questions. I'll move to Kainat's question. So should we record the 3 videos indoor in a room or outdoors with people in the environment? So about that's completely up to you. However, we do encourage you to try and do it indoors just because of the audio purposes. So sometimes when you're outdoors in an environmental space, there's noises from things outside. So your recording might not be as clear, which would then risk your chance in your submission, because if the judges can't hear what you're saying clearly, then it would make it a bit difficult. But what I have seen in previous editions, what some individuals do is that either they put like videos or pictures in their application, but then do like a voiceover. I know that might be a bit much, like in terms of time and access to things, but some people try and do voiceovers to introduce that outside element into their application. But my suggestion is it's always better to be safe. So if you want, you should do it in an indoor space where the audio is clear so that your application can be heard clearly. Apologies about your network, Abdikadir. The session is being recorded, but basically the session was just about how to go about your application. And I think I'll see if there's time. I could just run us through the slides at the end again. Okay. The next question by James is, I would wish to ask, why is it that videos of some community members are out with production magic, but no links yet? How long will it take to get their links for their videos? I'm sorry, could you just, James, could you specify about this question? Because I'm not too sure which videos you're talking about. Okay, Barclay, a quick question. Can the lead facilitators also apply for the second phase? No. If you applied for the leads program, then you cannot apply for phase two. That's if you intend to still continue being a lead. If you no longer want to be a lead, then we encourage you to drop out of the leads program, which means you will not become a certified lead, and then you can apply and try your best with the Limitless Academy itself. So you can't be both. You're just gonna have to pick one path. And then Wilson. Okay. Will participants who completed phase one receive a certificate of recognition? If so, when and where can we access or download it? Phase two video that we submitted. Oh, okay. So the first question, yes, you will get a certification for phase one. When I think the team is still working on it, and then where you usually get it sent directly to your email, and then from there there's a possibility for you to download it. Phase two that we submitted. Do you mean like your application video for phase two, like you've already applied for phase two, or if you could just clarify that one for me. And then Isaac's question is, now to us who have received edited videos back, should we think we're selected for phase two or? Oh, okay. So you've already applied for phase two and then you've gotten the link for the edited videos. Okay, now I think I understand. Um, Mm, I think you should wait until you receive an email because, like I said, applications are still open until August 2nd. So until we get to that point and then the judges go through your applications, I would not count the edited video as a guarantee that you've been selected for phase two unless you get confirmation from the team via your email that your application was selected. Abdikader's question is, as I have applied for phase two, what would be the next step to do after deadline? Um, so after the deadline, if you've already applied for phase two, you sort of just wait until the deadline, and then we give time for the judges to go through the applications, and then there's a whole judging process. So there's various judges. I think there are about 2 judges per video to ensure that it's fair, the entire process. So once that's done, then a communication will go out as to whether or not your application was selected to proceed into phase two or not. What is the criteria you're looking for to be selected? Like I said I think it was with Wilson's questions. In terms of criteria, we are basically just looking to see how well aligned your idea is in terms of development and then also in relation to the project itself. So how aligned is it to peace? How aligned is it to your community? Will it actually create an impact for your community or not? So we sort of just look at those things. Is it something that could potentially be scalable? Have you done your background into it? But yeah, and then obviously we also try and see that whatever you're developing won't be something that would cause effects to your community, but rather solutions. Okay, Nika. Sorry, I don't want to mispronounce your first name, so I'll say your last name, Kareem. If we can't effectively convey the concept, is it possible to submit a new video again? So we do encourage people to just submit one video, which is why we also encourage you to take time to develop your idea and look at the guidelines before you submit. If I don't know if I would have to go back on this one and then get back to you because I don't want to give a response that I'm not sure about. But I do know that in some cases there are times when an applicant, based off of the video itself, could be asked to resubmit something if it wasn't clear. But I don't know if that's an opportunity that's always given. So I need to see about that one. I'm not too sure, to be fair. Okay, Ali's question is, if we connect climate-related project with peace-related theme and explain how our project will promote peace in the community, will it be acceptable? You mentioned that previous year projects were based on climate, but this year's theme is peace. What you suggest, ma'am? Should we go with the climate project? Yeah, so if you saw in my presentation earlier, I did mention that under the topic of peace itself, you could always relate your idea to one of those different topics that I had put on the screen, and I'll put them up again just now. But yes, if you can connect your climate related idea to peace and show how it can potentially promote peace in your community, then yeah, it's an acceptable project. You just have to ensure that how you shape it, how you develop it, and how you present it to us is something that will be of interest to the judges to say, yeah, I think that could, if they do a climate project in that way, it could really benefit the community in your area, and then it could potentially lead to some form of peace solutions. How about those that participated in the IFRC Light in the Darkness but never got 1K likes, but instead got 1K plus viewers, like information reached out people? Can they be considered too? To be fair, I'm not part of the team that's working on this specific question, so I'm not sure what the requirements are on that, but I think if the goal was to get to 1K likes, then I think the team might be focusing on likes. But again, it's not an area that I'm too comfortable to answer because I just don't know what the approach is there. Okay, I'm just going to try and share my screen again just so that I can show those topics. That we had mentioned. Okay, so this was the presentation for those of you that joined late. We just talked about how peace is the main theme this year. We talked a bit on how we're now going into phase 2 and that we're going to be accepting up to 1,000 applications. And that's both whether you're applying as a team or as an individual. We talked about how seed funding is up to, so it's between 150 to 200 Swiss francs upon selection. In terms of the things we offer you in terms of support, other than seed funding, like I said, we do peer mentoring. There's the training aspect. We have the chat bot that I mentioned, and then also space to connect with global expert advisors. In terms of who can apply, I think we've sort of covered this to say that it's members of the Red Cross, Red Crescent world in general. Participants should be between 18 to 30 years old. But if you are either younger than 18 or over 30, you can apply as a team, but just make sure you're not the team leader that's applying. If someone is applying as a team, just make sure that it's the team leader that's submitting the application, because it's one application per team. And then you can decide if all of you want to be in the videos or if you just want one person in the video. That's up to you guys. And then just to clarify again, if you were not part of phase 1, you can still apply for phase 2 moving forward. Like I said, the application in terms of videos, we're going to ask you to submit 3 different videos. The first one should be between 1 minute long. The second and third should be about 2 minutes long each. And these are the questions, but in the guidelines I shared in the chat, you should have access to a bit more of an explanation on what exactly each question is really looking for. Like I said, languages, we do 18 languages. So when you apply, just select whatever language you would feel comfortable learning in. And then here's on the projects. Like I said, these are the topics. So peace is the whole topic in general, like the outer layer, but then you can have areas within these topics that can align with peace. So for those of you asking about climate, yes, there is a bit of climate change that could potentially, or climate related aspects that could potentially also link back to peace. But there's a lot more that you could look into as well. And then lastly, just make sure that you get your registration in before the 2nd of August. But yeah, I hope that covers it for everyone. I'm just gonna have one more look if there are any questions. Okay, Wilson has one more question. For phase 2, do the team members need to be IFRC or Red Cross participants, or can they be community members from our local area who are helping to implement your project? So just as I shared in my presentation, I can go back to it really quickly. So we also do encourage people. So in terms of who can apply, it could be innovation hubs, communities, and local partners connected to your national society. So I think you could potentially work with community members as long as there's some connection with them in your national society. So if you are a volunteer for your national society, that's the connection, and your national society tends to work in that community, then that's the connection that you have with them, and you can use it in your application, I think. So I hope that answers your question, Wilson. Okay, we have 1 minute to the end of the session. I hope I've answered everyone's questions and given you some clarity. If not, please do reach out to us on our Solferino email. If you have any questions, we will reach out to you in response. And I'll just put the email address there. So if you have any questions, you can always ask them to the Solferino team. How long will it take for us to know if we're selected or not? So, okay, let's say applications end on August 2nd. Give it maybe like a week, because it depends also on how many applications come through. So I think around a week or 2, the team have to disperse all the applications to judges, make sure that they get up, they go through that process of judging. And then I think there's also a second day of judging, just to make sure that it's fair to everyone that's submitted. So I won't give a specific date, but let's just say from after August 2nd, I think the team should communicate how long it would take. But then you'll instantly, whenever the decisions are ready, you'll get, we'll send out a notification to you to say you should be expecting the responses or the emails at around this day. So just keep an eye on your email, check your spam. So that will be communicated. I don't know if there are any more questions, any last things you guys want to get clarified on. If not, there's potentially, we have a second English session on, I think this week around, I think maybe on Friday. I'm not too sure. So if you're interested or if you have more questions, you could potentially join that second session. But for now, I will say thank you and I will let everyone go unless you have one last question. You're welcome. Thank you, everyone. Feel free to leave whenever you feel comfortable. Yeah, we'll be ending the session now. Thank you. You're welcome.